get the hot seats while they're going. These are the leadership seats right here. These are the ones for people who want jobs.
You guys think we're joking, huh?
If you are getting passport points for tonight, be sure you swipe your card. It is now installed in the second to the last row. Please do that.
Is it working?
If I send you, will you make sure that works first?
Oh, it's right now running right now. All I'm doing is setting up an external microphone. So it's even louder. Where is that port?
You're under Alex.
A Nieves 02. The one with the little profile picture. Sure. Thank you so much. Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, perfect. You could have. Right.
Greg. How you doing, man? Nothing much, nothing much. Thank you very much.
Let's do it. We're going to send the YouTube. All right. Yeah. No. It's 5:30. We're going, man. It's not a ghost. We could do it, but I think it's just complicated. This is God speaking. Welcome. As you're coming in, please sit toward the front. These are the leadership seats. I think I already discussed this, but no one has listened to me. But now that you know I'm God, you should probably sit in the front seats here. We really welcome you here tonight. Let's give people a couple more minutes to find their way to the room. But you are looking good. This is a good group. Are you interested in real estate? Anyone? Okay. There's a perfect audience. Okay. We'll start in just about a minute. let's get started. Thank you all for coming. This is a terrific opportunity for you. I'm Gibson Dean of the O'Malley School of Business. And this is a chance to hear from outstanding leaders in the New York City real estate market and well beyond. And at least 2 out of the 3 are alumni of Manhattan College, and one additional guest star who is standing in for an alum. So in the last several months, we've been working in the O'Malley School of Business on an initiative to develop courses and a program in real estate. And so we want to kind of whet your appetite for what is coming, and we're very excited about the possibilities in this area. You may know that the New York real estate market is vibrant and is interesting and growing at the rate of, over the next 10 years, 11% over the next 10 years in terms of jobs available. It is we're second only to Tokyo as the largest commercial real estate investment market in the world, followed by LA. And of course, it has a track record of being one of the best long-term real estate investments in the United States. Man, I wish I'd done that a while ago. And I think Jim can give us some perspective on long-term investments. So in order to launch this initiative, we're doing, and we've done several things. First, we've gathered a group of real estate professionals. We call an affinity group, and two of the 3 panelists tonight are from that group. They are a passionate group. They think real estate is a terrific fit for Manhattan College, especially for both engineering and business majors. How many engineering majors do I have tonight? You managed to get some engineers? All right, I'd like to see that number a little higher. How many business majors? Okay, all right, the word got, that's right, raise the roof. I think the word is getting through there. I gotta get some more engineers. But we do have an engineer on our panel tonight, and she can talk about that path. So forming an affinity group, we hired Richard Ross, who is a visiting instructor in real estate and will be teaching a couple of classes in the spring semester. I urge you to check those out. Real estate development at the undergraduate level, and actually at the graduate level, we have a course as well. So please consider that class. If you are interested in the class and want to know more about it, talk to Richard after the talk. And our final action we're doing is tonight's panel, and this is a chance for you to hear a little bit about what a career in real estate means. Real estate is a very diverse occupation or industry, as you're going to hear. You may have thought about being a real estate broker, that is buying or selling a house. You might have some familiarity with that. There's a lot more going on in this field. For those of you who are finance majors, there are many opportunities: finance, business analytics, management, marketing. Real estate, as you'll find out, is a multidisciplinary field. It needs a lot of skills. One of the key skills is people skills, getting to know people, being curious, having some chutzpah, being able to negotiate a deal. And you'll hear some of that background tonight. It's also a great place for engineers, and we'll hear from an environmental engineer, but certainly civil engineers, mechanical engineers. You are well prepared for many aspects of real estate. So it'll be interesting for you to think about and start asking questions about, is this an opportunity for me? Because it's important not to think of it too narrowly, because real estate encompasses a lot of different occupations. So we are tremendously glad we're here. You are here. We have excellent panelists to talk to you. And now I'd just like to introduce Richard Ross, our visiting instructor of real estate, and also our graduate programs, external graduate programs, MBA recruiter. And he's going to introduce our panelists. So thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for attending this inaugural real estate panel, and welcome to the wonderful world of real estate. My name is Richard Ross. I'm the visiting instructor for real estate here at the college. I'll be teaching 2 classes starting next semester, both in real estate development. One class at the undergraduate level, and it's an elective for you. another class at the graduate MBA level, and that's also an elective. So we put 2 flyers out there, one for each class. So please, when you leave, pick up one and check it out. If you have any questions, you can give me a call. My number's on the flyer out there, and I'm in the MBA office there at the college. Now, let me introduce you to our wonderful panelists. 2 of them are Manhattan College alumni. One of them is from Yale, but we still let him in the building. We welcome him and thank him for coming. So first we have James J. Coleman, who's managing partner at Houlihan Barnes Properties. James is a graduate of Manhattan College and has been actively involved in the commercial real estate business since 1982. James has been active in all areas of sales, financing, ownership, leasing, property management, mortgage servicing, and the overall management of properties in the metropolitan New York area. Additionally, Mr. Coleman has personally assisted in due diligence, acquisition, and distribution of both bulk properties of REOs and non-performing loan packages of investment groups. In 1990, James became vice president of Houlihan Barnes. Currently, he's a partner of Houlihan Barnes Properties as well, which is a full-service management company affiliated with Houlihan Barnes Realtors. Mr. Coleman is a member of the Board of Governors of the Bronx Manhattan North Board of Realtors and a director of the Bronx Realty Advisory Board. He is also chairman of the school board of Mount St. Michael Academy, and some of you may have gone to that school. He's also an alma mater. Mr. Coleman is an active member of the Ireland U.S. Council, Westchester County Association, the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick's of Westchester, and the Ancient Order of Iberians. And welcome, James. Thank you for coming. Next, we have Michael Hudson, who's sitting in for John Vasquez, who is the global head of real estate of Verizon Corporation and a Manhattan College alum. Michael works directly with John, and he's one of the key people in the Verizon organization in the overall management of their global real estate portfolio. So Michael serves currently as Director, Transactions and Development for Verizon since 2018. He oversees 800 plus transactions annually, as well as the firm's ground-up real estate development and joint venture activity. Michael's team is responsible for the execution of Verizon's strategic real estate initiatives. He's charged with analyzing opportunities across Verizon's 110 million square foot portfolio. The group navigates capital markets to structure transactions, which enables and champions seamless business growth across the country. Previously, Michael led Verizon's joint venture group, focused on tactically repurposing Verizon's fixed asset portfolio. He began his career at Verizon as a regional portfolio manager in Buenos Aires, with regional oversight over the firm's Latin America real estate portfolio. Michael worked as strategic consulting for Jones Lang LaSalle and as an analyst in MetLife's global real estate groups. He has a BA from Denison University and an MBA from Yale. Okay, thank you, Michael. Welcome. And last but not least is Raphael Dunn Susskind, who is an engineer and has over 28 years of experience negotiating public-private partnerships and has successfully completed public-private partnerships in excess of $2.5 billion in the commercial real estate, transportation, solid waste, power, water, and wastewater industries. Over the last decade, her assignments have typically involved managing multidisciplinary teams to reposition property or redevelop real estate assets for those partnerships. Those partnerships include the redevelopment of Moynihan Station, the expansion of Methodist Hospital, the modernization and rebalancing of the long-term care at Terrence Cardinal Cook, and the disposition of a portion of the old St. Patrick's Cathedral School, and the expansion of Brooklyn College's campus. Ms. Susskind leads the firm's consulting practice and has been the client manager for projects including CUNY, Local 1 Plumbers Union, Local 6, and the Archdiocese of New York and Trinity Church. Ms. Susskind received her New York State Professional Engineer's License in 1997 and her New York State Real Estate Salesperson's License in 2016. She's also a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers and Cornet Global. And Rafaela, thank you again for attending and welcome. So on that note, I'm going to ask each of you to please just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your current position. And I'll start with Rafaela.
Hi, my name is Rafaela Susskind. I'm a senior vice president at a small boutique real estate development and real estate advisory firm called Washington Square Partners. We are equity partners primarily in commercial components of mixed-use development. We own retail shopping centers, one right here on the border of Manhattan and the Bronx. It's the Target if you're driving up the Major Deegan, you see it off to the right. And also City Point in downtown Brooklyn, which you may be familiar with. It's across the street from LIU's downtown Brooklyn campus. We, from an advisory perspective, we primarily, our clients are typically large property owners that find themselves in need of having to reposition their assets. And so Archdiocese of New York, for example, has several high school buildings that have closed. They've consolidated parishes. So they find themselves with real estate that is either historic or not zoned properly for an alternative use. They bring us in, we help them from a land use perspective to properly zone the building, to determine what the highest and best use is, and then we bring it to the market. Should I keep going?
Yeah.
Or, okay, so from when I first met with Don, I didn't know if I should call him Mr. Gibson.
Don.
But, okay. He asked me how I got involved in real estate, and really my roots were in engineering. My undergraduate's in structural engineering, my master's degree is in environmental engineering. Real estate was never on the radar for me because I was very analytical. And so real estate just seemed like this obscure, like sort of brokerage, right, leasing, how would I be involved in that? And then when I graduated, just by fortune, I guess, I got involved with a company that did solid waste management. And we were negotiating transactions on behalf of municipal governments with private sector companies to come in and design and build, operate, and maintain waste-to-energy facilities at the time. And that skill set was translatable. Eventually that whole industry fell apart, Clean Air Act, large investments, inability to finance them anymore, all of the components of a real estate transaction. We moved from waste to energy to doing this in the water and wastewater industry for greenfield projects in new development areas. And same skill set, and then eventually moved on to transportation facilities. And then got selected to do the redevelopment of Moynihan Station, where it was this huge transportation facility, right? So you had Amtrak, New Jersey Transit, Long Island Railroad, I don't know, $1 billion of capital need and an inability to finance it. And so it became a real estate deal. There was 600,000 square feet of retail and 2 million square feet of air rights associated with it. And so the skill set that I had from all of those infrastructure projects was directly translatable into the real estate industry. And then when you start seeing buildings getting built, you get addicted to it. And so for the last 13 years, I've focused my career primarily on real estate that has small infrastructure components to it. So
thank you.
that's it.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. And Michael, can you tell us a little bit about your current role at Verizon?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys all for coming out. Sorry for being the only non-alumni here. So I'll start at the beginning. I also stumbled into real estate. I had no idea what I wanted to do coming out of undergrad, and was very fortunate to find an internship in corporate real estate departments. The fact that both the undergrad and the business school was taking a proactive approach spectacular. To Rafaela's point, there are so many different ways and so many different lenses you can look at a job in real estate. It's really not as myopic as I might have thought at 22 when it's, well, I don't want to be a broker, I don't want to sell and buy houses. So it has evolved, it's allowed me to travel the world. It's an industry that's always going to be there. There's going to be ebbs and flows, but the number of ways that you can package and think through how you can evolve a career and grow both personally and professionally within a real estate framework, I think is absolutely immense. That being said, what I do today is handle all of our transactions and joint venture development for Verizon. So we have, as Richard stated, over 110 million square feet across the globe. 105 million of that is in the United States alone. So we do about 800 transactions a year just to keep the business going. So as technology evolves, we need to renew leases, we need to acquire new properties, technology will change, we'll need to exit a market, so we'll need to sell or sublease to get some of that balance off of our books. So that's more of the tactical piece. The strategic and the really fun part is we have 6,000 buildings that we own as part of the 105 million square feet. And I don't know how many of you know what a landline is, but they say there's no apps.
Yeah,
there's like the cords with the phones. So we had buildings. If you think about the Brooklyn Bridge, there's this really atrocious building that has a Verizon sign on it, and it's got no windows. And for the last 100 years, those buildings have existed in most major markets, and they literally had copper wires running from the basement to 455. As technology's changed, wireless has pivoted us from needing those copper wires to single vaults of cable and fiber to connect our cell phones, the internet, everything that you guys do to stay connected happens in one single cable vault versus a 25-story building. What that means for us as a real estate organization is we have empty buildings in central business districts, and there was an edict at Verizon 10, 15 years ago to sell them. They're worth $100 million. If we get 20 million, they're on the books for 10. There's some gain. That's great. We're not a real estate company. John Vasquez, who apologizes for not being here, who has been my mentor and just is a phenomenal leader in the space, changed that narrative with the business. So we now have a whole joint venture development group that looks at a building next to the Freedom Tower and says, if we can move the technology out of the top 12 stories, we can transform that into luxury condos. So we will leverage our fixed asset as our contribution to the venture. That'll be our equity participation, so there's no capital outlay from Verizon. Our cost of capital for non-infrastructure, non-5G related expenses is way too high, and we don't have the appetite for the risk. But we're able to reposition those assets, participate as an equity player in the deal, put all the risk on the resi or the commercial developer. They get an asset at a discount, 60 cents on the dollar, to allow all those economics to work, and then we participate on the back end profit. So it's allowed us, and we have this whole group now that's continuing to grow that looks at every single owned asset and says, what can we do? Do we need to be here? And if we don't need to be here, what's the market look like, and how do we potentially develop it, redevelop it, sell it? How do we participate? What's the value creation and what's the proposition that backs up it? So it's a phenomenally interesting role, but it's something that I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Mr. Vasquez and the career growth. And you guys are gonna have just such a head start having this baseline understanding foundationally as to what career in corporate real estate could be and that entire spectrum. So excited to be here to chat with you guys, and look forward to hearing from you during and throughout.
Thank you, Mark. Jim, you've had such a varied and exciting career. You've touched almost every area of real estate. Please tell us a little bit about your career arc and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I also have a Verizon story later.
Okay.
We bought one of your buildings.
Good one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We bought a building on the Grand Concourse and converted it into office space, but that's later. I graduated in 1980. When I got started, real estate wasn't on my radar either. I worked for Wallach's clothing store at the Frost County Shopping Center for 4 years during college, and then went into the buying office in Long Island City right after graduation. Didn't like it. left. I was dating a girl at the time that she also graduated from Manhattan at the same time. And I went to pick her up one night, and the father goes, "You mean you left a job and you didn't have another one? You didn't have a plan?" And I'm like, no plan. And I was still living at home. So he goes, "Why don't you come up and see me on Monday?" Okay. And I went up, and he owned this part of this real estate company called Houlihan Farms. It's a family business that started in 1891 when a gentleman came over from Ireland and started building buildings in the Bronx and houses. And I went in, met with him, sat there, had no idea. And he goes, "I'd love to have you join our team." And I sat there going, "What happens if this doesn't work out? I'm dating his daughter. What am I going to do here?" And, to be full disclosure, I joined, we did get married. We're still married, I'm still there. It's over. So full disclosure. It wasn't the type of thing that they gave it to you, you're involved with the family, the Houlihan family. That was not the case at all. When I went to family dinners, they never talked about business. It was all about what was going on in the Bronx, what sports was going on, what were the Yankees doing, what were the Giants doing, all that sort of thing. And I started, and I knew nothing. They literally gave you a desk, gave you an owner's book, and said, "Start cold canvassing." And I would open it up and start calling owners, and quickly realized what I had to do to make it in the business. So I started out as a salesperson, selling apartment buildings in the Bronx, in northern Manhattan. And quickly, after a few years, realized that the way to make it in this business is to be an owner. So I took my commission money and put it into deals that the office was buying. So you would start out getting 1% of the deal, 5% of the deal, and just working. And you would make your commissions and put it back in. And quickly learned that being an owner in real estate is the way you want to be, or the way you want to go. But learning in the streets, or learning from that book, and then going out to an apartment building, going to the roof, going to the basement, talking to this one, talking to this one, meeting vendors, supers, tenants, dealing with all the day-to-day action. I love going to the buildings. I'm a kid from the Bronx. I played out in the streets all the time. You just learn, and you pick it up quickly, and you run with it. So I kept putting my money back in and back in and back in, and stopped being a sales broker, and became a full-time owner and operator. And one of the things we never had in our company was a management part, or a management section, where you would manage your own property. You always had somebody else doing it, and you just knew they were ripping you off. So we decided in 1990 in 2000, to open up a management company within Houlihan Farms, which I became a partner in, and was a guiding factor in getting it going. And now, 19 years later, we own and run many of our buildings, and we take care of it. Not somebody else, not relying on people that don't have the same passion that you have. And you just learn, and we picked it up, and we ran with it, and here we are 20 years later running that. And we also had an office division that started also in 2000 that just buys office buildings in the metropolitan area, primarily in Westchester. We have some in Jersey and Connecticut. And they also run their own stuff. They lease it, they run it, they do the work, the construction work, all the leasing, all the prep for the buildings. We all do it ourselves now. And if you want to become an owner, the best thing to do is start in management and work your way up. So if you learn all the fundamentals of running a building, whether it's a multifamily, whether it's an office building, retail, industrial, if you learn that and you work your way up and invest your money in the properties, you will then be a successful owner. And that's where I am today.
Thank you. I'm a kid from the Bronx, and I'm not nearly as successful as you, so I have some more questions. So,
Okay.
And by the way, we're going to have a student Q&A, so please start thinking of your own questions now, and you're going to have a chance to fire away at these three, so you can make money and building named after you at the college too. So, tell me, I'll start with you, Jim, since you just spoke. Are there any special challenges to succeeding in the New York City real estate market?
Yes. I'm not sure where to begin, but I had lunch with Don and Richard last week, and the one thing I told them that I learned after 37 years is your reputation is crucially important in this business. If you're going to be in it for a quick buck, or just roll somebody and sell a building and make a few thousand, $100,000, $1 million, great, okay, good luck to you. But if you want to have a sustained business career in real estate in this area, your reputation means a lot. And you have to be upfront, you have to, if you make a mistake, own up to it, but word gets around about what you did, because the real estate brokers will talk, the owners will talk, lawyers will talk, title company people will talk, and you don't want to be that person. You want to be cognizant of how important it is for you to do the right thing and make a deal, and if it works, great. Not all of them work. They don't all, not everybody's 1,000%. No one's batting 400 all the time, or 300. But most of the deals that you get involved in, if you work hard and stay on it, you'll be successful. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Thank you. Raphael, the same question. What do you see as the special challenges in the New York City real estate market that you've had to overcome?
Well, just piggybacking, I agree. It's astonishing how much of the transactions that we do are, you know, they're verbal commitments that then could take years to paper, right? So the attorneys are following you, trying to paper what you now verbally agreed to, and your reputation is everything. You have to be a good guy, you have to be an honest player, because if you're not, no one's gonna wanna do business with you. In a city of 8 million people, New York City real estate development community is about 200. We come into contact with the same 200 people all the time. From my perspective, because most of my projects need, they're not being done as of right, so they're not something where you can just buy a parcel or go into a building and start construction. One of the biggest challenges that we face is through election cycles, the administration changes, the head of every department changes, so City Planning's administration changes, New York City Economic Development Corporation staff changes, then we've got layered on Empire State Development Corporation, which is the state agency. Sometimes we need landmarks. Many of these positions that are actually decision-making positions are appointed by whoever the elected official is. And so your ability to get projects through an approval process is a function of the election cycle. And that is a challenge, because a lot of the projects that we work on take decades. So the downtown Brooklyn City Point project that I was mentioning, which is still under construction, it's 1.9 million square feet. We negotiated the lease in 2006. It's a city ground lease. It was built in 3 phases. It's the last phase is still under construction, and that's 13 years later. And so you have to have a very long appetite and the ability to really play with a lot of different elected officials, because you're spanning multiple election cycles. And so that is, to me, a big challenge of what I do.
It sounds like you also have to be able to juggle several projects at once. If development projects take so long, you gotta have a couple balls in the air, right?
Well, that project actually has been full-time for 13 years for the staff that are working. It's that big. I mean, that's a very big project, but from the advisory standpoint, we do have multiple projects, multiple clients, all at the same time. So sometimes we're at, I could be at city planning for 2 projects, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, working with different staff. But because, say, Moynihan Station, for example, 2004. And the first phase just completed construction, the second phase is now under construction. And so you have to have patience to wait it out, and then if you do, I look around the city and I'm like, the skyline is completely changed, and I've touched so many pieces of the different components of it, but it's taken 28 years, so.
Thank you, thank you. So, Michael, just in listening to you describe your business and the work you do with John, you guys went from being a cost center to a revenue generator. So you've had to overcome a lot of challenges inside your corporation, convincing people you have value and your team has value.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges is proving that case and overcoming the perception. One of the examples we'll build off the first question on the New York City market, and it's one of the fastest moving, not to sound overly trite, but if we're protecting for our business first to improve our case through a business-led example, you start to gain that credibility, and the more credibility and business capital or political capital you build at the C-suite level, the more they're going to be willing to kind of go out on a limb and say, we appreciate the accretive value of that project, we're going to take a flyer on it. So the example that I give, also looking towards Brooklyn, is I'm sure you see the Verizon trucks all throughout the city. When we need to go install or fix fiber cables, we roll out an entire fleet of vehicles that are filled with the equipment that need to fix the cables. Those vehicles need to live somewhere. So we had for a number of years garages throughout Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, and the old mentality was 5-year renewals, we don't need too many future options, we're Verizon, we have phenomenal credit, landlords love us, they're gonna keep coming back to us. That's great until a neighborhood redevelops, and there's more money to be made building a city point than a Verizon single-story garage. So part of how we've built that model has been, when you're the end user, you have to understand how your real estate portfolio impacts your business today, in 5 years, and down the line. So we could have secured all those garages for 25 years and washed our hands and said, the business is safe, but how are developments around those parcels going to impact traffic flow and employee connectivity and the livability of that piece? So when we think about corporate real estate from a Verizon perspective, we have to look at it truly holistically, and it's not just, okay, the business needs to be in X location, go secure X location. Understand all the influencers, and that includes the market, that includes the periphery of the market, and being able to bring those cases forward to the C-suite as to how we're kind of going against the trend has allowed us to build the political capital to take projects like our residential or luxury condos downtown forward, and then once you start cashing those checks, you have more and more latitude to do more and more projects.
Thank you, thank you. So I'm going to stay with you, Michael. We're hearing a lot about a very hot topic, no pun intended, global warming, and the construction industry is jumping in terms of sustainability, building sustainable buildings, maintaining sustainable buildings in this environment. Have you worked on any sustainability projects?
We have. One of our 5 major CEO-like criteria is society, and our CEO was one of the founders of the UN 17, let's get the correct vernacular, the 17 guidelines to a more sustainable future. So sustainability is a huge focus of our industry, or how we approach the industry. We know that real estate is one of the largest contributors to the carbon footprint across the board. So we issued, I believe it was the first corporate green bond in the first quarter of this year for $1 billion, and that $1 billion is being spent on green construction. So we have a whole energy trading desk within the real estate. So they're underneath real estate, they're underneath John Vasquez, and we have energy traders that are buying and selling futures to try and get the best energy prices for the firm. And what we're leveraging that arbitrage for is investing in the solutions that might have a longer horizon from an ROI perspective. So if solar panels pay off in 19 years, it's a tough case to bring forward to say in just a singular snapshot that we should invest in this, even though there's the accretive environmental perspective, but if you can leverage that, the trading that we're doing with our energy group and the money that's being brought in through that forum, we can then put that money towards, well, it would be a 19-year payoff, but we're leveraging these profits to offset that cost, and actually your payoff becomes 4 or 5 years, and the cost of capital is justified with our Treasury Department. So it's a part of every project, but you have to look at it holistically. You can't just say solar panels and you solve for it. It comes down to everything from the operating system to TOD, which is transit-oriented development. The more people we can get to our properties, the employees that we can get via public transport and true public transport, it's less of a concern in New York City because we have such a great public transport network. But when we start to do projects in Silicon Valley where transport is non-existent, people are taking 2.5-hour buses, how we frame those arguments and where we choose to invest our money and develop becomes a huge part of that entire case. And we're looking at that impact across the board. So not just glass, not just materiality, but what is the kind of cradle to cradle perspective of the employee experience and how are they contributing in the secondary and tertiary degrees.
Great, great. And Rafaela, are any clients coming to you asking for your help in sustainable projects, and how are you meeting that challenge?
Well, I would say from a development standpoint, it's become very routine. I think, the standards are in place. Architects and engineers design to the standards, which, at least in New York's marketplace, are pretty solid. I think from a tenant perspective, the tenants have grown to require sustainable design and sustainable operations. I saw something interesting today, and then from a tax credit standpoint, that's sort of like from a financing standpoint, that's been in play for a while. I saw something interesting though on my elevator today where I get a lot of my news, and actually Prada just took out a $50 million loan, and the interest rate is actually adjustable depending upon how sustainable they do their build out of for what they're using those funds for. And that was the first time I had actually heard that in that perspective. And then to your standpoint, I'm also a trustee in my village, and we are doing a whole infrastructure project based off of the energy savings. So there's a third-party company that's approved by the state of New York that came in and did an audit, established how much we would be able to save in our energy costs, and they financed those capital improvement projects based off of those energy savings. And so there's a lot of sustainable elements to, sort of the world of real estate, the world of civil engineering, just your sort of daily life.
Thank you, thank you.
Jim, you're not only dealing with new construction, but you're managing properties and upgrading those properties. Is sustainability playing any role in your business? And is it making your ROI go down or go up?
Well, we already have the property, so we just are renovating them as opposed to new construction. What we have done is whatever we buy, automatically LED lights go everywhere. So that's a policy, and that's inside and outside, no matter what. We also convert to gas wherever possible. I know that gas is an issue in today's in New York State now, but if you have the ability to get gas, we convert from oil to that. We also do insulation. We have a number of garden apartment complexes in Orange, Dutchess, and Sullivan County, where teaming up with the town, they come in, NYSEG, they come in and do an audit, and we then follow that audit. They pay for part of it, we pay for part of it, but there's insulation, there's replacement of doors, there's replacement of windows, anything to try and tighten it up as best you can. Some of the garden apartments, we automatically change the windows when a tenant leaves. If we're going to renovate an apartment, we're changing the windows, we're upgrading anything we can to help save energy. And we do it in Manhattan, where we have a co-op apartment that a tenant leaves that's been there for 30 or 40 years. We'll rip the apartment out, and we'll also LED lights, saving appliances that are saving energy, flooring, and we replace the windows. So In that way, we do a lot of it, but very quiet.
Great, thank you. So, talking of challenges, Jim, what has been your most challenging deal in recent times, and what did you learn from that deal?
I don't know, I don't have any one. I'm just going to describe something that recently took place. We bought a office building, a 40,000 square foot office building in Port Chester about a year ago, and it came with a parcel of land across the street which they used for excess parking. And the owner at the time wanted to empty out the building and convert it to storage, which the town was never going to let happen. So he decided they wanted to sell it, but in the meantime, he was getting rid of tenants. I'm like, So we bought the building and the lot. We got 3-year financing from one of our standard banks, the local banks, and we went in there and did the lights. We replaced wherever we could the glass on the exterior of the building. We upgraded hallways, elevators, and at the time, the 4th floor tenant, 11,000 square feet, left because the owner would not give him a paint job and new carpet. So you just, really? No, they were walking out the door as we were walking in. And we stopped and we analyzed the whole thing and decided we're gonna fix it up and get it out for rent, which we did. We rented the 4th floor, there was a space on the 3rd floor vacant, there was another thing on the ground floor, rented it all up. And fixed the whole thing up and refinanced it. And what I was talking about before was taking your commission money. Well, we took that money that we got from refinancing the building after we got it fully leased and bought another building. And that's what owners do. They take the opportunity to fix up where they can, increase the rent roll, finance, and then go on to the next project. So part of that was we went to the town and we got an approval for the lot across the street to build 115 units. It's partly affordable, but that was a challenge to go through the process in Port Chester, which we did in a year. So now we have 2 separate assets, where we refinanced, we took care of the one building, got it under control, got it leased and financed, and now we have this other piece. So we took a project that we paid $4,200,000 for. Now we already refinanced the building for over $4 million, and now we have 115 unit approval on the lot that's worth $6 million. So we kind of took what was there that was kind of not well managed and not well taken care of, and redid the whole thing, and now you're going to have a building for housing in downtown Port Chester, along with a fixed-up office building.
Wonderful, wonderful. Michael, when we talked, you told me at least about 3 challenging deals that you worked on recently. Can you mention one that you think is noteworthy?
Yeah, I think one of the more interesting ones, when we purchased Yahoo in 2016, we purchased all of their real estate assets. And as we were doing our due diligence, we came across their headquarters in Sunnyvale, California, had a 24-acre parcel that was developable. As we're doing our due diligence on what we just acquired, we received a letter from Google, who owns pretty much all of Mountain View and had slowly started to creep into Sunnyvale. And Google said, listen, we want the property for $500 million. No chance. We're not going to sell it. This is our new asset. This is our new company. We need to integrate them into Verizon. We're not interested. Thank you, but no thank you. As we furthered the due diligence, we understood that there were entitlements that were running out on the parcel, 24 acres in question. And over those 3 or 4 months that we did the due diligence, we had received another letter from Google. We will buy it for you for $600 million. So a light kind of went off and said, they want this thing. And money doesn't seem to be an object for them. And we could point to the deal at Chelsea Market, where I think they started at $600–700 million. The owner said no. They wanted to $1 billion. The owner said no. $1.5 billion. The owner said no. $2 billion and change. The owner said okay. So we said, what we need to do, what we think we can do, was all we need to do to vest the entitlements in question. And we had a huge bonus FAR allowance that allowed us to build about 400,000 square feet more than as of when give us $3 million, we're gonna put some concrete in the ground, nothing above it, but it's gonna increase the value of this building by at least $150 million. They said no. We went back 2 weeks later and made the pitch again. They said no. Tried it a third time and said, and this was a great exercise in how you just reframe the challenge, and we said it's not just going to increase the value, but we can also return about $500 million in gain to the company because we can sell this, and we're going to need to put the people somewhere. So we started concurrently negotiating a go-to build-to-suit development in San Jose. San Jose is in kind of the nascent stages of their corporate build-to-suit growth. So we were able to negotiate a below-market deal, and Google came to us eventually and said, how about $1.1 billion? So that we can do. So the challenge with it was all at the same time trying to close, because we didn't want to sell something and not have a home for our people.
Right.
We didn't want to buy something and the Google sale fall through, and now we're putting an extra $500 million of liability on the books. So we were trying to negotiate the sale of our building, the lease back of that building to a party who had no interest in leasing back. They are just grab land. We're trying to hire at such a fast pace. We don't care what it looks like, while trying to negotiate the build-to-suit, draw the building, what is our optionality from a purchase, from a ground lease, from we did a lease that they could finance it with Wells. What's our optionality once they get to substantial completion? Who's doing the construction? All of those moving pieces, and we all had to close within about 3 days of each other. So keeping developers patient was one of the challenges. But when we look at any of our large mixed-use ground-up development, the biggest challenge really is all the competing priorities. So the lenders have their priorities, the developers have their priorities. We, the end user, want to obviously stay profitable, but at the end of the day, it's for our business and our people, and the real estate is about the people and providing the business the pathway to hiring and attracting and retaining the top talent. So all of those competing factors and closing within a certain time frame, with all the legals and all the pieces that are layered in on top of that, that's the most challenging. But we did close that deal, and we're moving to our new home in San Jose in 2 years. We broke ground actually last week, so we're excited about that.
Excellent. Congratulations on that. Rafaela, I know in our discussions you mentioned the numerous zoning challenges and congestion challenges in New York City, but you may have another challenge that you'd like to tell us about.
I would say I just completed a project that was a rezoning. It was for a senior assisted living facility up in Upper Manhattan. And in that case, there was a Department of Health policy decision that really forced them as an operating model to reconsider how they were providing care for their resident population. And the zoning on the property, so it's a campus, the zoning on the property didn't allow them to sort of consolidate the residents that they had to and unencumber the rest of the property and use it. And so we went through this arduous process of trying to get them approved for rezoning. The challenge was the timing of it. We initially went through and tried to do it as a BSA action, so as a hardship case. We figured Department of Health, it's a healthcare facility, they need the money in order to consolidate and modernize. Classic hardship case. BSA did not like that argument. So at the same time, the neighborhood was going through an area-wide rezoning, and originally our property was incorporated in the boundary that was being rezoned, and the zoning district that was proposed would have enabled them to do most of what they wanted to. And so we took a back seat and we just continued on with our architectural plans for the skilled nursing component. And then city planning came out with their boundary for the environmental review, so the EIS that they were doing, and they eliminated the 3 blocks, ours and the one to the south and the one to the north, and so we were no longer included in the boundary. And the administration didn't want us to put forward a private application alongside with an area-wide rezoning. So they asked us to wait. And when you're waiting a year, that's a long time for a client to sit and wait while they're trying to operate within the confines of a reimbursement from Department of Health. And so that was, what's my lesson learned? I'm not entirely sure what my lesson learned from that was, other than, I'm not sure.
Move as fast as you can, because you don't know what's gonna happen, right?
Well, we did finally finish the rezoning just at the end of October, and they came out way ahead of where they otherwise would have, so I guess patience is a virtue. I guess that's the lesson.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Rafaela, can you talk a little bit about the role of mentorship in your career, and, you know, how does a young person go about finding a mentor in the real estate industry?
So, I mean, on-the-job training, right, is obviously the best way. I mean, you'll have the advantage of having classes that you can take, which will be hugely helpful because I didn't. I came out of engineering and an engineering curriculum, which basically taught me problem-solving skills, which are important, and project management, which is also very important. I had people that mentored me through my career and took me under their wing and let me, you know, go participate in projects in probably a more robust way than other people might have had the opportunity. I went through leadership development training also at my first company, which was HDR Engineering. So they had put together an 18-month program where you went and took Dale Carnegie leadership, training, and there was a curriculum associated with it. It was all after hours. I mean, right? So you're working your full-time job. You're
on your own time.
You're earning the company what you have to earn for the company. Otherwise, you're not going to get the attention. So it's a two-way street. They let you do a lot of things, but you're doing a lot of things for them. I would say that it's important because from a real estate perspective, there's nothing that substitutes for experience. Almost everything I do is on the fly. So my clients are calling because they want your experience and they want your advice. It's not like they're calling because you're gonna pause and analyze something for 40 hours. You may come back in and follow it with an analysis, but they're really calling you for that sort of temperature gauge initially on whether it's something that merits the 40 hours of analysis or not. And so it takes time to get that degree of experience, which you can only do, by being mentored by others.
Wonderful, wonderful. Jim, could you speak to the role of mentorship in your career and how these young people can go about finding their own mentor?
At William & Barnes, there was no training. As I talked about, they gave you a book and you just sat there and made phone calls, but you watched how people handled themselves within the office and people outside in the field. I think you have to want to be part of the real estate world, but you have to get it. And what I mean by getting it is like listen and don't sit there and ask a lot of questions. Absorb. Listen to what goes on between your coworkers, the principals of the company, and the outside world, and run with it. I ran with it. I didn't sit there and wait for someone to say, you gotta do this, this is it, you do this today, you have this assignment. You just watched and learned and did it. And it sounds simple, but it's really practical. And if you just sit there and expect people to do the work for you, or want to give you the assignments, you have to want it. You have to go out there and say, okay, I've finished all this. What else? Can I go out in the field? What property can I go to? What do you need me to inspect anything? Even if it's a simple thing, you'll learn from it. Even if going to a basement and being in a boiler room, you'll learn from that. You'll learn from looking at an electrical panel, and you'll see this is too old. This is going to have to be replaced. You're going to know it. You're going to learn it. And you get it, and you just run with it. Based on the fact I had no training and I had no real estate experience, that's my experience, that's my advice.
It sounds like you're saying that you have to make yourself mentorable.
Yeah, yes, you have to be there, be on time, be dressed properly, look like you want to be part of the action and want to be involved for an extended period of time, not just be in the job for a year and move on to something else. You want to be, it's okay to move, but learn. Learn where you have to stay if it works and make it work for you.
Thank you so much. That was great advice. And Michael.
I just got one thing to
Oh,
add.
please.
I'm gonna jump in on it just
Please.
because I wouldn't be sitting here if John Vasquez wasn't my mentor. I think both of those comments were absolutely on point. Experience is everything, and Jim touched earlier on, getting that foundational understanding of every piece of the business, whatever that business may be. Underwrite everything. Get involved. Every piece that I think of real estate has all of these deals come with a lot of administrative headache, come with a lot of granularity that no one wants to do. Underwrite everything. That way you're going to understand how your leadership and how the financial decisions are made, but you're also going to get an insight into kind of that holistic piece of the process. So sticking that hand up and saying, yeah, that's not necessarily what you hired me for, but I'm going to help wrangle all of the consultants, which can be herding cats at times. That's how you understand how architects go about, deciding, how the process flows from design development through construction docs, without having to go to architecture school, as an example. So, make yourself mentorable.
Thank you so much for that. Shout out to John Vasquez. Thank him for sending you, Michael. I'm going to now, I could ask at least 10 more of these questions, but I feel it's only fair that we open the floor to the students now. So I'm going to walk around with the mic, and please just raise your hand. I'm going to go to this gentleman right here because he approached me first with a really great question.
Who are you? What year are you?
Hello, my name is Arthur. I'm a junior right now. I'm majoring in accounting and sort of finance. My question is this: so recently, interest rates declined, and I wanted to ask each and every one of you, how does it influence your industry and your job, or like your projects?
So the interest rate that just went down involves the prime rate. So most of our borrowing is fixed rate, and it has a little component to the prime rate, but most of it is fixed rate for 5, 7, or 10 years. But the interest rates have been declining over the past year, or 2 years. And what we've done is we went back to our lender and renegotiated with them. So if we're in the middle of a 5-year deal at 4.5% interest, and we have 2.5 years left or 3 years left, we go to them and say, okay, we'd like to modify and extend at your current rate today. And most banks will do that. We don't take out any new money. We'll just take what's there. So they don't have to go through a whole process of appraisals, environmentals, underwriting, lawyers, and all that sort of thing. Just a simple modification and extension. You could drop your rate by 1/2 to 3/4, maybe 1 full point, which goes straight to the bottom line once that happens. And that's the simple way to do it.
So do they pass those cost savings back to you in terms of no appraisal?
No, they don't give us anything, but we don't have to pay it.
Right.
So, we don't have to all of a sudden wait 3 weeks when appraisal will be done. They'll go and do it right away. So we've done that dozens and dozens of properties, more than once. We just see where the rates are and where we were 5 years ago, and just go to them, and they're happy to do it. They don't want to get paid off, because they have to put the money back out. The other thing they do is there's a prepayment penalty always involved in refinancing or paying off your loan. They'll usually cut that in half. So if you're in the 3rd year, your prepayment penalty is probably 2%. So they'll cut that to 1. The legal fee will be minimal, and we're happy for another 5 years. We put that to bed. The other thing is, currently we're trying to buy a big piece of property in Westchester County, and we're deciding what to pay for the property based on the interest rates we can get. So we can go a little further now in terms of a purchase price or a bid or an offer, because now we can get money for 5 years at 3.25. So that's big, because if you were at 4.5, you can't spend that extra money to try and buy the building.
I agree. I think that's sort of the classic benefit to property owners. I do have a client that runs a housing cooperative, and they have 3 commercial zones with commercial assets that generate income that is, that has to pay any debt that they have on the property. And because of the lower interest rates, it's a very old cooperative also, they needed $60 million in capital improvements for replacing air conditioners and just various things in these housing units. And they looked at potentially monetizing some of their real estate, so doing an additional building in order to generate that capital. And because of the lower interest rates, they were able to refinance and pull out most of the capital that they needed. And so that was, a benefit to them.
The only bit that I would add is being having such a large portfolio with so many owned properties. When we look at our investment opportunity, we don't need to do anything. We're not a real estate business, so we're not sitting by and trying to drive our EPS isn't moved by real estate deals. That $1 billion I mentioned, Treasury forgot about it the next day. So we'll wait until moments like this in the market when the interest rates are lower. We'll have everything teed up to take a project to market, because if the costs to borrow are lower, it's going to reflect a lower yield and be more profitable for both our front and back end positions.
Hey, I'm Colin Grady in the business school. I'm a junior here. Question for all of you guys. What major do you guys think would most benefit someone trying to go into the real estate career?
So I think the one piece that I wish I had as an undergrad, one of the drivers that sent me back to business school was the baseline financial acumen, accounting. We have an accounting group, we have a 10,000 person accounting group, but being able to speak their language fluidly and being able to challenge some of their positions, incredibly valuable. A lot of the real estate nuances you're going to learn through the experience, through finding that mentor, through getting involved in deals and just watching them from cradle to grave. But understanding every aspect and every influencer from how accounting to treasury to corporate finance, planning and analytics treats a deal, and how you then negotiate that deal, what's the difference between a capital and operating lease, and how you need to negotiate that based on what's important to your firm. Having that financial acumen, I think for me was the one piece that I was missing from undergrad, and I think that would be the strongest thing that I would look for in new hires coming out.
So I think I'm a little biased, because I actually think that coming out of engineering was a good baseline for real estate development, particularly my background, civil engineering, and then environmental engineering, because from a development perspective, you're dealing with land and geotechnical, and you're having to hire architects and engineers, and you're going through a design process, so it's very analytical. From a personal perspective, though, also what I'm lacking, that I feel I'm still lacking after doing all of these projects for all these years, is the finance component, because I never learned it. And so I've done it on the job, I've been around it, I still don't fully understand it, and I don't know if I've got every component of it, because it is very complicated, and so I would agree.
But I also agree, you can't go through these projects without engineers. So you can get all the way down the line with feasibility, and if you don't have engineering at the start of the project, they can easily help you make it more profitable and find the pathway to a better deal. But if you don't have engineering in tow, you can get all the way, socialize that thing with the C-suite, and completely blows up. It's not feasible.
I agree with accounting, but I'll also add had the desire legal. A lot of what real estate is legal. And if you can go and do the 3 years and be a lawyer and come out, get finance and you're a lawyer specializing in real estate, there are plenty of lawyers that have gotten involved in being owners of real estate and done very well. Back in the day, in the Bronx, Manhattan, Upper Manhattan, and downtown, most of the guys that I've dealt with as lawyers have also taken pieces of the deals, and that took them to another level. And there are plenty of lawyers that just, that's what they do. They're a lawyer and that's what they do 5 days a week. But if you have finance and legal, you'll be way ahead.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm a junior and I'm currently studying economics. So I guess like my concern is with like climate change. I mean, there's already an image of, I think, New York's prediction of it being flooded by like 2050, and then you look at California with like the wildfires, and so there's a lot of like climate change and natural disasters to take into account. So I guess I have 2 questions for you. So first, it's like, are you looking into properties for the preventative measures just like when those things do happen? And second, what are some like locations to look into now considering climate change?
I mean, I would, no, I can't say that there is any specific geographic areas that I'm familiar with where people are looking at potentially getting out of disaster areas. I would just say that after Hurricane Sandy, which was a 100-year storm, that essentially revamped a lot of the design criteria and ways that buildings are being constructed so that they're more able to sustain that type of a situation. But yeah, I don't know, you might have more.
We more think through, so Sandy was actually the reason we did our first joint venture development. It knocked out 8 floors of technical in the building adjacent to the Freedom Tower, so we had to clear it out, and we kind of had a natural progression towards how we would reform the technology. We think through it in new acquisitions and our massive owned portfolio. It's very expensive to move the business, to move, and a switch that runs the entire 911 network for Midtown Manhattan is in the hundreds of millions of dollars to build redundancy and ensure that that transition is safe. So we think through it, but our bigger concern when it comes to the sustainability aspect is the amount of power that our current network requires, and we're working with landlords to build the case of, if you can help us with some of those move the network costs, we can change the profile of this building so it fits within the parameters of the Green New Deal, because if not, the 2 of us are looking at some massive tax bills. So it becomes a cooperative and symbiotic conversation, and just trying to move the dial piece by piece with our entire 6,000 building portfolio.
Hi, my name is Redwan. I'm a double major in finance, economics, and a double minor in business analytics and computer science. I have one question. If you're interested in real estate, as a college student, what can you do to show that you're interested in this field? For example, in college, if you want to go into marketing, you can join the marketing club. If you want to go into investment, you can join the investment club. But we don't really have anything in real estate related. So what can you do as a college student?
I think you're starting one, aren't
Just
you?
one note, yeah. The real estate club is coming. In fact, aren't you the inaugural member over there? Yeah, so if you're interested, talk to this guy about that, yes. And then we're trying to build the rest of it.
There are a number of professional groups and they cost money, but ULI, Urban Land Institute, which I think is a much more value-add organization. There's Coronet, which is more corporate real estate. Getting involved in those, and they have a number of student-based programs, and not terribly versed in what those are, but the $500 that we may have to pay to be members to ULI, I think is heavily discounted for students. It might even be free, or they have a number of events that introduce you to panels like this across different asset classes. So I would look into those 2 organizations. staying active in the community and just getting involved in these types of conversations. We're always looking for bright young talent.
I think internships are a key element here, if you have any
Yes.
comment on that.
The other thing that you could look into is, one of the first things that you do as a real estate professional is get a salesperson's license. That's what we had to do when I started. You had to start by taking a class. The Bronx Board of Realtors does it, the Westchester Board of Realtors does it. They have a class, it's $400, $500, and it's a 40-hour class, two nights a week. You have to take a test from a school, then you have to take a state test. Pass those two, you can have a license. And that's how, if you want to get started early on, and you maybe want to do brokerage instead of going into another field, just start somewhere. That would be the thing to do, is start with a real estate license. And then you have to keep it going, and then eventually get a broker's license.
But it shows you're interested in the field, right? Even if that doesn't end up being your specific line, yeah.
It's good to have it. If you're going to be in the real estate business, you should have it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Richard.
I currently have my salesperson's license in New Jersey. What would be the next step to move towards like being an owner or like commercial real estate?
You don't necessarily need a license to be an owner. It's good to have it. You do, as I said, you probably want to take courses to keep your license, because that's a state law in New York, and get your broker's license. Because once you have that, then you can have your own office. You can have people working for you. Right now, as a salesperson, you have to work for somebody in an office, or you can work for yourself as a broker. But to become an owner, I would you have to get involved. Find somebody in the business in and around your area that is looking for someone that would take on a young college student to learn the business. Maybe a family-owned business. That's how a lot of the Bronx properties got built. They were family-owned businesses that eventually they sold out. They had packages of buildings. They had bought buildings in the 30s, either bought them or built them, and then started selling them as years went by. And the next generation of kids didn't want anything to do with real estate, so they moved on. But a family business or some big company would be good for you. It's learn and then keep going for yourself.
Any other students with questions?
I'm George Marie, I'm a senior. A lot of you guys talked about doing value add and development. I was wondering if you did any experience with like a 1031 exchange with the client. Maybe just like talk us through that, that'd be great.
Yes. We've done a number of 1031 exchanges, so we've sold several properties. I'm going to, let's see, I think of one that we did, but we just sold a parking lot, which was part of the MTA next to the Fleetwood train station in Mount Vernon. We had bought that about 4 years ago for a low number, and the MTA came to us and said, we want to buy it. So just like he was saying, when he got offers, they said no, and we did the same. And eventually they said, we want it, what is it going to take? So we had a $2 million profit on a parking lot in Mount Vernon, and the tax bite would have been terrible, and you just don't want to do it. We're in owning real estate, not buying, selling it, and then moving on to something else. So we now have taken our profit and bought a office building in Armonk. So that group, there were 3 people involved in that ownership of Mount Vernon, went and took their entity, which was an LLC, and became partners with another group that was buying this office building in Armonk. And the money from the sale went to an intermediary that holds it for you for a 6-month period. And then you find the property and you set up a closing date, and that guy or company then wires the money to either the title company or the seller. We never touch the money. And never comes to us in any way, otherwise we don't have a 1031. But that was just something that just happened in the past 2 months.
Jim, can you briefly explain what a 1031 is? That statute?
1031 is where you want to avoid paying taxes on a profit on a sale of a commercial property. So you just want to keep going. You want to take it and roll into something else. You can roll into something bigger than a parking lot like we did in a parking lot, but we rolled into like an office building or even a shopping center or a multifamily building. But the idea is to avoid paying taxes for the time being. Eventually, you'll pay it somewhere along the way. But the other key thing that is going to happen for us is we took that money, put it in, we're going to refinance that building in a year or two after we lease it up, and we're going to get our money out tax-free.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, I have a similar example, is on a much smaller scale, is a single-family house, investment property, complicated and wasn't easy to rent as easy as I thought it would be, sold it, or wanted to sell it, wanted to shelter the capital gain, and did a 1031 exchange, paid $600 to some company, I forget what they're called, like, I used one in I used one in Arizona, and then I thought you had to do it within the same asset class, so.
That's why I was confused.
Right.
Garage to the apartment buildings. I thought they had at least be similar.
Right.
You can go from a bigger apartment building to a larger.
Or multiple.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
an income producing asset. The parking lot, we collected rent. We rented
Oh,
out.
that was the commonality.
Yeah, we swapped it with the building.
But basically, the asset has to exceed the value of what you sold, the prior asset for, and it can be a more expensive asset, it can be multiple assets. But yes, I mean, the trick to them is that you hold it for a year, you're able to refinance it, you can pull the money out. That would have been subject to capital gains.
Our one challenge there's a lot of ways you can interpret that like-kind nature to roll it into different asset classes. Our challenge, not being a real estate investment company, but a group that participates in real estate investment, is you have an 18-month window to roll those proceeds into the next project, and nothing moves fast at Verizon. So we need to be thinking ahead of time as to, we think we're going to monetize X, we want to roll it into Y, let's get the business case for Y socialized so you can trigger those two things simultaneously or as concurrent as possible. So that's our biggest challenge is, if 18 months sounds like a long time, we don't do anything with it.
Real estate is one of the few asset classes that allow you multiple opportunities to avoid taxes that build and bulk up the return on investment, and what makes it so attractive to both individual and institutional investors. And you can learn more about tax avoidance in my real estate class, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, rross02@manhattan.edu, if you want to learn more about the wonderful world of real estate. So we're going to conclude our panel by thanking James Coleman, Raphael Susskind, and Michael Hudson for their participation in this inaugural real estate panel. And I want to thank you for attending, and I hope it was helpful and informative and sparked your interest in further exploring the world of real estate.